Juventus, Calciopoli, and the long night of Serie B. In 2006, Juventus, one of the greatest clubs in the world at that time, fell into a miserable situation they had never anticipated. A scandal suddenly took away 2 championship titles from the club, and its glorious history suddenly was tarnished as never before. After 109 years of dominating Italy's most prestigious tournament, the Bianconeri had been demoted to Serie B, a place for low-level clubs and shabby stadiums. The Calciopoli storm. It was an inevitable punishment for a scandal that shook all Italy. A Turin-based football team, one of the original teams that had fascinated fans around the world, suddenly collapsed, a fall that rocked all of Italian football. People did not have time to figure out what was going on, what to think, or how to feel. All of it was wrapped up in chaos. The scandal, known as Calciopoli, was exposed in May of 2006. When they were discovered to have joined in match fixing, Juventus, AC Milan, Fiorentina, Lazio, and Regina were swallowed up in a black hole. A network of individuals representing the clubs and referees was discovered to have intentionally fixed the main matches for their own benefit. The famous writer John Foote wrote in his book Calcio, a dark world full of deceit against morality and politics. At the heart of that dark world was Juventus sports director Luciano Moggi. Investigations showed that Moggi dominated almost every aspect of Italian football at the time, from transfer contracts to referee assignment. Even the broadcasting of matches on television was controlled by Moggi, who ensured that Juve's image and brand were always polished and cared for. Moggi used every means possible to build his empire: blackmail, corruption, and even violence. Those who did not obey would suffer pain. Rivals who did not compromise would get unfavorable results, while referees who did not follow his rules would find their careers destroyed. The fact that all had to obey the devilish rules said one thing: the influence and power of the big Italian clubs at the time was too great. Moggi and Antonio Giraudo, a senior Juventus official, were charged with controlling referees over the phone to get beneficial results in the race to the championship. Those who didn't comply were blacklisted like the talented writers of Hollywood. Although there were also other clubs on the blacklist, prosecutors claimed that Juve was the only team involved in fixing the results of the matches. Therefore, it suffered the most severe and shocking punishment in the history of the team. It was pushed down to Serie B, stripped of its championship titles for 2004-05 and 2005-06, and forced to start the new season with a handicap of 9 points after appealing. Milan was also eliminated from the Champions League for the next season, and Fiorentina and Lazio were relegated. Juventus team managers resigned in mid-May, followed by Moggi, the chief conspirator of the scandal. He was sent to prison for 5 years and 4 months, and was permanently banned from participating in football-related activities, along with a number of others, including Giraudo. People waited for nearly a decade to find justice. On March 23, 2015, Moggi's crime was officially declared settled by the courts. At that time, Juventus, an illustrious jewel of world football, faced an end like the apocalypse. For a long time, the image of black and white stripes had become a symbol of the most attractive tournament on the planet. There was a time when Juve's class was demonstrated by such classy duos as Baggio and Zoff, Tardelli and Vialli, Zidane and Platini. In some ways, Juventus had even escaped the doping problem of the 1990s. But Calciopoli was a very different story. That black hole made Juve suffer from negative public opinion. Breakup and story about the loyalty. The relegation of Juve led to a terrible migration. The world-class squad suddenly became dust. Fabio Capello moved to Real Madrid, followed by Fabio Cannavaro shortly after he received the Golden Ball and won the 2006 World Cup Championship with Italy. Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Patrick Vieira moved to Inter. Emerson moved to Madrid. Adrian Mutu joined Fiorentina. And Gianluca Zambrotta and Lilian Thuram chose Barcelona as the next stop. Juventus not only lost the talented generation of world football, but also lost its inherent value. Their power in the transfer market no longer existed when they had to play in Serie B. Not many players wanted to play on a shabby field. Juve had few options but to accept low-quality contracts. However, emerging from the story of scandals and humiliations was another story, one of love and loyalty. The origin of that love was Alessandro Del Piero, Gianluigi Buffon, Pavel Nedved, David Trezeguet, and Mauro Camoranesi. They stayed when the club needed them most. These stars could easily have moved wherever they wanted, but in the end, they decided to stay. Juventus struggled for a promotion next season to restore the club's honor. Both world champions and bright stars in Europe participated in Series B as a consolation to the Juventini, whose pride suffered after the scandal. As Gopal explained, those 5 names were the core of Juve at that time. They and the other players on the squad helped us stand up and move forward. Long night in Series B. The first match of the new season took place at Rimini, a place where people only knew about traveling, not football. The game ended in a draw, 1-1. The score was an omen for Juve fans that everything in Series B was not going to be quite as sweet as they expected. That match was terrible, Gopal recalled. I remember the moment Del Piero led the team onto the pitch, thinking, why was the pitch so narrow? All the pitches were small, crowded, cramped, stuffy. After that game, I realized one thing. All the rest of the Series B teams wanted to defeat Juventus. The Bianconeri won the next 8 matches convincingly, scoring 16 goals and only conceding 1 in a draw with Napoli, their main rival that season. That didn't worry them too much. Many matches Juve participated in took place in an atmosphere of extreme tension. A series of referees were particularly hard on the Turin team. Throughout the season, Juventus received more than 8 red cards, including the first red card of Buffon's career. But whenever Juventus took the pitch overconfident, anticipating an easy victory, they created a great opportunity for other teams to pull off an upset. The first name to defeat Juve was Mantova, when they blanked the team by a score of 1-0 on January 13, 2007, a dark day in the history of the Turin football team. The crowd at Danilo Martelli Stadium screamed loudly because they felt let down after both Robert Kovac and goalkeeper Buffon were defeated. A heavy defeat for Juventus. Thereafter, there was no doubt the season became tougher than anyone could imagine. The number of Juventus draws increased to 10 when their opponents tended to put 11 men behind the ball in order to preserve the score. Brescia was one of the teams trying to knock off the Bianconeri, but despite the losses, Juve was still in the thick of the title race despite a very poor start to the season. The number of spectators in the stands at Delle Alpi gradually decreased when the team did not meet fans' expectations. The hostility that existed in the streets when anti-Juve people had the opportunity to gloat over the club's misfortune seemed to last forever. However, it eventually ended when Juventus scored a 5-1 victory in Arezzo. But after that, things were not that simple. The story of Juventus was coming to its climax. In the final days that Juve was mired in Series B, conflicts suddenly arose between important individuals. Didier Deschamps, the coach who was leading the team on the path to recovering the glory days, suddenly resigned after conflicts with football director Alessio Seccio. Giancarlo Corradini, Deschamps' assistant, reluctantly became the coach for the last 2 matches, which turned out to be defeats to Bari and Spezia. Meanwhile, striker Trezeguet, who felt he was not respected by management, had a moody and disappointing celebration after scoring. Obviously, playing in Series B had made some loyal stars feel they were no longer being appreciated. As a result, they started to look for a different future. New era. Series A era. After returning to Series A, Juventus had to decide whether to rebuild the team and start slowly or participate in the title race. Gopal said it felt like Juve was failing to rebuild on its traditional philosophy. Indeed, the players that Juve brought back after returning to Series A were not particularly successful. Fortunately, the team also had Claudio Ranieri. He led Juventus to finish the season in 3rd place and put the club firmly, officially back into the Champions League. However, the club still disappointed its fans when the following season they came in 2nd place and dropped to 7th in the 2 seasons after that. The defeat to Fulham in the Europa League in 2010 was the low point. Except for playing in Series B, Juve hadn't been that low since 1999. At that point, Andrea Agnelli became president of the club and appointed Giuseppe Marotta as football director. Marotta brought in Antonio Conte as coach, a decision all agreed was a wise one. From the pit of despair, the former Juventus player brought a new surge of energy to the team. Juve won the Scudetto 2011-2012 season without losing a single match. No other team had achieved such a record before, and the glory began to glow once more. At the same time, the club moved into a new stadium, Juventus Arena. Juventus had begun a new era. Juve went on to win 5 consecutive Series A titles, and the fans rejoiced as the seat of power once again returned to Turin. The Bianconeri were really regaining their swagger, and this time it wasn't by bending the rules. Conte left in 2014, but his successor, Massimiliano Allegri, helped the club take another leap forward, namely in the 2015 Champions League final. Juventus had come back a long way since the Summer of Darkness. These days, Turin has become an attractive destination for many of the game's bright stars. And of course, Italian football is again on par with other countries, having at least one club in the European League. It's common for people to say let the past sleep, especially when the past is associated with the darkest and most forgotten page in the history of Italian football. But passionate fans of the Turin team will never forget the tough journey their club went through, moving from the desperate dark of the Calciopoli night to the glorious light of today. All of us applaud the efforts of this incredible black and white team. What do you think about Juventus' journey? Let us know. Thank you for watching.